of the Seminole Historical Society. You'll see a bunch of fuchsia fossils walking around here with our t-shirts on. That's our board and volunteers. And we're just excited to have you. So I want to recognize Councilor Tom Barnhorn is here tonight. So thank you for being here and supporting us in his lovely white Rayma. We did Adopt Maya last weekend, and Tina, if you'll stand up, she's the crew leader.
Yay.
And we have a crew member, but there were 5 people out on Old Oakhurst, 7 o'clock in the dark. We started in the dark, forgot about that. But next time it'll be 7:30, it'll be better. But anyway, 13.25 pounds, and yes, 13.25 pounds of stuff that we collected. So we have 2 distinguished members here, and we are so excited for them to talk about their history, throw in a couple of fire prevention tips, and they have I think it's probably going to be a great dog and pony show. What do you guys think? So, Mr. George Bessler and Mr. Doug Meyer, do you want to go one at a time, or?
Get started.
Okay, all right, please go.
Good evening. Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Okay, that way I don't have to have a mic. I'm Doug Meyer. I was born in New Jersey, and as a young kid, about 4 years old, I convinced my parents that New Jersey was not a place to live. He said, well, where do you want to live, Doug? And I said, the Florida Sun Coast. And they said, okay, well, I live today within 5 miles of where I've lived my entire life, really here. So I'm kind of a native Floridian. I've watched the Largo Seminole area grow from when Seminole Boulevard was just a 2-lane brick road. Some of you remember that. Ridge Road was a 2-lane road and used to stop at 54th Avenue where you had to hang a left unless you took the dirt road down what is now Doomy Road. So I've watched this whole area grow up. And as a kid, we used to ride our bikes over to the beach, and we could ride our bikes from home. I lived on 125th and Seminole Boulevard. I was able to ride from there over to the beach, spend the day at the beach, make our way down the beaches, pool hopping as we went down, come across at Madeira Beach, Gulch Causeway, and I'd go home, and I'd be home by dark. Now there's about 4 or 5 of us boys that would go do that, but that was how I grew up around here, and I got to learn all the things around here, even to where we helped the guy that cranked open the old Indian Rocks Bridge. Because the old Indian Rocks Bridge, you get in the middle of it, you crank it, and it's split in the middle so boats could go by. So we got to go help him do those things. Well, I went to Fugan Elementary, I started at Largo Junior High School, then went to Madeira Beach Junior High School. Then I was fortunate enough to go to Seminole High School. And in 1968, there was this thing called the powwow. It was pretty much getting off the ground, and the fire department was taking this powwow and making it something that all the benefits would go to the high school to help them build their football stadium. Well, my dad thought that was pretty good, but my dad was a volunteer firefighter up in New Jersey. And he used to bring his sons, my brother and I, and there's a picture of the 2 of us up there with our helmets kind of laughing. But he would bring us to the fire department. So we got to learn the fire department, the smell of the fire department, the taste, the guys, the whole thing. So we got involved. Dad got involved, and when I say dad, the whole family gets involved. So with that, a little bit more about our history. 1959, there was a fire here in Seminole. I believe it was a trailer fire. I could be mistaken. But it burned up the entire house because it took, at that time, Florida Forestry and Largo Fire Department, Largo Volunteer Fire Department, an hour to get to the scene. Well, a bunch of community activists decided we need to get involved and we need to start a fire department. So they did. They started a fire department here. They reached out looking for a fire truck. They found one at the Coast Guard station over in St. Petersburg. Over in Tampa. And the Tampa fire, they have an old fire truck, a 1941 International midship pump that 4-wheel drive, that was just an old truck. But it was a good truck and it worked its purpose. Well, they brought that here and they turned around and they set it up at Lou Mond's Funeral Home. Well, Louis Mond's Funeral Home used to be down just south of 54th Avenue. There's a makeup place or not quite, dermatology facility there now. But that's where Lou Mond's place was. And next to it was an open field. Well, the fire truck used to park in that open field. They had a tarp over it and they had jumper cables right there because when the alarm went off, because Lou and Marty Mon would answer the phone and would set the siren off, and that's what notified the firefighters that there was a fire. They would come in, they would get to the station, and the first guy in had to pull up, open up his hood, hook up the jumper cables to start the truck. So, because again, they didn't use it that often, so the batteries would die, and so they needed to make sure the truck got started. Well, it grew, and it grew a little bit more. And somewhere around the early 60s, well, yeah, mid-60s, John Turber donated them some property. And the property here at 70th Avenue and 113th Street. Donated them a whole corner type thing, from the back of his front door, his back door, around and out to 113th Street. They built a little 2-bay fire station, volunteers did. They had masons that worked here, they had guys that did concrete, so they built the fire station. They went out and they bought their first fire engine, what we called Engine 1, which was a Ford Howe, and it was a 750-gallon minute pumper, had 500 gallons of water, we had all kinds of hose and things like that. Well, the fire department grew and kept kind of growing, and in 1968 they added to that fire station, they added 2 bays to that fire station, so now they had a big 4-bay fire station. I came on as not a formal volunteer in 1968. I got to come along because my dad was there, and I would follow them. I'd take my car, I'd go take pictures of fires and stuff and what the guys were doing. I'd follow them into training, and I got to be the little boy that they'd pat on the head, good boy Doug, and as their token volunteer that was a kid. 1970, before I graduated high school, I was inducted in the fire department as a full volunteer at 18 years of age. I had to be 18 years of age to drive a fire truck and to be a volunteer in the state of Florida at the time. And I got to be a volunteer, full-fledged volunteer, and I learned how to drive, I learned how to run the pumps, I learned how to do things just by hanging around, taking some classes and doing things. And here on this site there was a house that we used later on as a training facility. We were able to train on it. We used the lake. We dove in the lake for those that were divers. And later on, we eventually burned the house down. So, but it was a training fire. It wasn't just, something we'd let happen. But there's some of the things that started this fire department. It was the community involvement because of a fire that they knew that we had to be able to get people somewhere, get help sooner than what we were getting. You see pictures up here. I can go through all the different fire trucks, but they are some of the apparatus that we acquired over the years. Later on, we got other apparatus, and the fire department grew. By 1970, excuse me, we also built fire station number 2. We called it our North Station. It was fire station number 2 at 110th Avenue and just off of Seminole Boulevard. And we put a fire truck up there and a brush truck up there. And during the dedication, we had a significant brush fire, which was here at the Triangle where the little plaza is. It used to be Johnson's nursery, part of Johnson's nursery, the palmetto, and it was full of palmettos. Well, the palmettos caught fire and we got sent in on that. That was my first fire ever to go to. And I was on the front of our brush trucks because our brush trucks had a place up front for them to sit. And the driver thought it was pretty cool that he had a rookie up front. There was 2 rookies, in fact. And he would bring the front of that the truck right up into the fire, and we were having to fight for our lives to put this fire out. Fortunately, again, we're here. Came along 1972, fire department grew a little bit more. We had already hired one man in 1965. We hired Bob Genholt. Some of you might remember Bob. Bob was ended up one of our deputy fire chiefs who was in charge of fire prevention, our fire marshal for many, many years. But he was our first paid firefighter that we had. Right after him, they hired 3 more guys. They hired Ray Nouse. Some of you may know Ray Nouse, and not Bud Ivy. Dwayne Booth got hired, and a kid named Mike Neer got hired. And 4 of them, between Bob, the two, and Mike, were assigned to the stations. They got assigned to Station 29 or Station 1, and they worked 24-hour shifts. The 3 of them each had a shift. And Mike Neer got up to fire station number 2, and he was there for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. 1972 comes along, and they're looking to hire some more firefighters. They're going to hire 4 more firefighters. Okay, I put my application in, and because it was either that or go to Vietnam. I had my choice. And my dad said, if you don't get hired at the fire department, we're going to get you in the Navy. Even though he was in the Army Air Corps, he said, at least you'll be on a ship, you won't be on the ground in Vietnam. Okay. Well, fortunately, I got hired by the fire department. I was one of 4, Carl Robbie, Richard Long, myself, and for the life of me, I can't remember who the 4th person was, but we got hired. I got assigned to Station 2 because I knew how to drive and pump apparatus. So I was there 5 days a week. There was now 2 guys on duty every day at Fire Station 1. So we had 24 weeks. The volunteers were still there. They'd still come. We had to, when we got the call, we pulled the truck out on the apparatus bay. We had to wait so many minutes before we could leave the fire station, hoping that volunteers would come in. In the early days, it was really easy to get volunteers because we all worked here in the community. The masons worked in the community, the concrete guys worked in the community, the carpenters worked in the community, the electricians worked here in the community, because we were building Seminole. Seminole was growing from a spot on the, I don't even think it was a spot on the map at the time, but it was becoming something more than Seminole Boulevard and Park Boulevard, and the Cox Lumber that was there. It started to grow. And we got more and more people, and of course they were building more and more residential areas. And then we got radios, or what we call plectrons, and we had these boxes that were about yay big that you got to carry around. You had to plug in or plug into your car or something so they'd work. But you'd hear the tones go off, and you know a call was coming, and our volunteers would leave whatever it was they were doing, unless it was critical, obviously, but they would come, and we had response to the fire department. As time grew, we got farther and farther away from people working here in Seminole, or working to the point where they could get up and go to a call. We had to hire some more people. And we hired several more as the time went along. And then in 1982, we were fortunate enough to hire this young man, George Bessler, and George came along and was one of my biggest pains throughout our time. I love him to death, and he was probably the best thing that ever happened to me too. He came in and he questioned things. Well, I finally sent him out of the office one day and I said, George, don't ever come back in here unless you got an answer to something. And I got taught at one class that I took in management leadership as I was getting promoted and moving along, is that you have your own monkeys. If somebody comes into your office with a monkey, make sure they leave with a couple of yours, and don't accept any of their monkeys. So George got a couple more monkeys when he'd come into the office. But he'd take it with a smile, and he'd go out and he'd finish the project wholly, more than a lot of guys would do. He really got into it and was able to answer your questions as we came along. But the fire department grew. We had now, we were growing to where we got Fire Station 3, which was out off of Vaughn Road, And then we had a merger with Seminole Park, Seminole Park Voluntary Fire Department. And we took over that fire department and made it Station 4, the one off of Starkey Road. So Seminole had 4 fire stations back in the day. And we had 23 men per shift. We had fire chiefs that grew with us. I remember Gene Depew was one of our fire chiefs. Then Donnie Fashner came along. Long after Donnie Fashner came Paul Hoffman. After Paul Hoffman came Jim McConnell. After Jim McConnell came John Leahy. After John Leahy came Vicki Murphy. After Vicki came Dan Graves. After Dan Graves came George Bessler. And you hire him as a firefighter and you watch him grow and become that fire chief. It's really something special. And then after George left, we had Heather Bruford, and now we have Bill Schobel. Bill Schobel we hired when I was hiring people, and I got to be involved with his hiring. And so if you got a problem with the fire chief, blame me. But anyhow, they're the fire chiefs that we had. Let me just quick. I'm sorry. We had, go back, throughout our early history, we had a ladies auxiliary that was phenomenal. All the wives, of course, they hear the calls come in, and they had a call down feature that if one of the wives found out that we had a long duration call, they'd start calling the other wives, and you'd be out on the scene, and next thing you know, the wives would pull up, they'd have coolers full of water, they'd have coffee ready for us, they'd have sandwiches if we've been out there for any length of time. Pretty much whatever it was that was necessary, they'd come out and take care of the staff, the people that were out on the fire scene. Both the volunteers and the paid staff, they all worked together throughout the years. During the years of John Leahy, we lost our volunteers. We moved entirely to a paid fire department. And it went from the Seminole Volunteer Fire Department, Incorporated, that was back in 1959, to the Seminole Fire Department, to the Seminole Fire Department District, to the City of Seminole, and where they are now, the City of Seminole Fire Rescue Department. So the department has evolved over the years as the community has evolved and become a bigger, more robust community. The fire department, for the longest time, was the backbone of the community. They supported the city when the city was getting ready to be first incorporated. I remember being in the Seminole Mall when they had the vote for the city to make it the City of Seminole. And none of us at the time ever thought we'd ever work for the City of Seminole, but throughout my career, it eventually happened. In George's career, we went from volunteer to paid firefighter for a district, or for a fire department, for a district, and for ultimately a city. And it's been a great opportunity for the fire department over the years. Back in 1986, I believe, there was a referendum in Pinellas County to create the Emergency Medical Services System, and which was a good thing. And through that, they were able to create a taxing district that created EMS in every fire district. Seminole had one where they sent some of us to paramedic school, and I remember sitting in the office one day, and Jim McConnell walks into my office. Well, no, it was Paul Hoffman walked into the office and said to Jim McConnell and I, "You guys are going to paramedic school. We can't spell paramedic, let alone be one." But we went to paramedic school. We were the first 2 paramedics. We went to a 12-week class. Now it takes them a year to get through their paramedic program. We got crammed in there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, some weeks, taking classes. 6 weeks of didactics, 6 weeks of practical learning. But we got there, and we were a part of helping Pinellas County get a EMS system that it doesn't matter where you are in Pinellas County, when you dial 911, you're going to get help. And help is coming to you. And speaking of 911, Seminole started the first computer-aided dispatch system in Pinellas County. We had one at one time where we were putting notes up on the board as to who was out, what engine was where, and then as they came back in, we'd flip little boxes or something. And one day, a friend of a friend said, I could build you a computer system that does that. So they said, okay. Well, our computer system was probably 2 rows deep and probably about as long. And we had to go change reels every day, and we had to do all kinds of stuff. But we had a computer-aided dispatch. And it grew from there. It grew, it got Largo involved, it got Indian Rocks involved, it got Madeira Beach involved, Treasure Island. All of them came along, and we started making a large computer-aided dispatch system to make the system better, so that no matter where you are, again, in Pinellas County, and it doesn't matter whether you got a cell phone or you got a hard wire, they can tell where you are in anywhere in Pinellas County. With your cell phone, they can tell within, I believe it's 10 feet of where you are. Is that correct? Wow. And so when you dial with 911, they know where you are. Now they're going to ask you where you're calling from and make sure they got the verification of space right. But you're going to get the closest unit to go there. And for the most part, not only do you get the closest unit EMS response, so you could be at the border, or Seminoles could be out, you could get a Largo unit, or a Madeira Beach unit, or a Pinellas Park unit, and vice versa. They could get those units if they're out on calls. Same thing with fire. We work towards an entire automatic aid process where it doesn't matter if where the fire is, you built your run cards, how a response goes, based on what is closest to you. And you would bring units in to support the fire department doing that. So it's grown from a little volunteer fire department with, I think it was 8 guys that decided that we needed to have a fire department here. They got themselves an old 1941 fire truck that later on was torn down. We tore the whole back off. That's the red one up there is the front part of the brush truck now. It became a brush truck. It's since been retired. There's another one. There's a picture over on the other side. It's got the truck where they're under construction. And I remember being out there helping grind away at the steel that we had to do, and they were welding, they were doing all kinds of neat stuff to the fire truck to make it a brush truck. It was kind of a tank that we would use. And but we went from that little fire department to what's now part of a metropolis of Seminole. And we've got industrial, we've got residential, we've got high-rise, we've got the gamut of things here in Seminole that we in the fire service, I say we anymore, it's the new guys in the fire service, they have to contend with, they have to be prepared for and trained with. With that, this young man over here got promoted into a lieutenant's position and then later on into a training chief's position. He was part of our hazmat team, which I was proud to be a part of also. And again, that was one of those that they walk in and say, oh yeah, you're going to do hazmat. My idea of hazmat was, could we wash it down the drain? And Chief said, no, that's not the way to do it anymore, Doug. So I had to go to school, learn how to be a hazmat technician, and then start teaching others. When we get on a hazmat scene, we set up our command, we work with the local command, but we'd also have our own safety officers looking at things. Well, we would do, afterwards, after call, we'd have critique. And some young officer that I know, very close to, would always have a complaint. And not so much a complaint, but a legit criticism. How's that? Good? Better. Yeah, better. But the criticism would be good. And I finally said to our command staff, I said, guys, if he ever shows up on a hazmat call, make him a safety officer. That way, if anything goes on, we get to blame him. Well, nothing ever happened. One of my mantras, and you'll hear some people, was everybody goes home after a call. And over my career, and I spent close to 30 years at the fire department, I've been retired 26. Everybody went home. We went home dirty, we went home scuffed, we went home tired, but we went home. And we've been fortunate here in Pinellas County that that's happened. But George was our safety officer, did a fantastic job there. He became their fire chief at Seminole, and with that, I turn it over to Mr. George Bessler, who is also Mr. Seminole.
Yeah.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
It was great to hear the history of our department because I'll give you a little bit of my history. As a young man, I decided I wanted to be a forest ranger. And I was going to USF and did my first 2 years of forestry program. Sat down with my counselor to plan my next 2 years. The counselor says, "So George, just to let you know there's only one job for every 10,000 applicants. Are you that one person?" I said, "I'm pretty smart, I'm passionate, I'm not one in 10,000 of anything." Suzanne, my wife, my high school sweetheart, we were engaged to be married, and I joke, but I'm not sure how much a joke it is. I often say, so my parents told me that once I got married, I couldn't live with them anymore, and I had to have a job. And forestry was not going to be that job because I'm 1 in 10,000. I was a volunteer firefighter in Hillsborough County, which is where we lived. And my volunteer fire chief, having a discussion with him, well, George, my son, works for this department over in Pinellas called Seminole, and they're an excellent department. He loves them. Why don't you go check them out? I came over and I looked at the equipment that Seminole had, the stations they had. I just was like, this is not what I was used to as a volunteer firefighter over in Hillsborough. I put an application in, and 6 months later, I got hired. Doug was the one that did the testing, and I got hired. And then that was April of 1982. And in June, I was married. The date that we had already established. So then I didn't have to live with my parents because they wouldn't let us. And, then I moved over to Pinellas. So we've been over in Pinellas since 1982. And I have to say it is quite an honor to be chosen Mr. Seminole. And a lot of it I truly believe was based on my involvement, not only in the community, but my involvement with the fire department. And it was really heartwarming to be recognized for the public service that Doug and Pete and others. Anybody else in here a volunteer firefighter or paid firefighter? Okay. So you all did, when you took the civil service test, you got 1 more point than what I got. And so I had to be a firefighter, and you moved on to other careers. Congratulations to you guys. But fire service has been, fire and medical has been just an amazing career. I spent 31 years at Seminole, as Doug said. I promoted up. I started as a firefighter, EMT, and went to paramedic school. I promoted. It's been just an amazing career to see it grow. Doug was in the fire service. Pete, I'm not sure when you started. Okay. Before me, in the fire service, when you were going to a fire, you did that without a breathing apparatus. Wow. Firefighters would grow long mustaches and curl it up underneath their nose for filters, silly things like that. Thankfully, when I got on, we had air packs that we wore, because I don't know that I would have stayed on if I didn't have a breathing apparatus. And our longevity has expanded significantly. We also learned an important role in the fire service to take care of ourselves so we could take care of our communities. That was kind of an evolution, because when I first got on, it was all about giving 100% to go out there and do your job without taking care of us. but that's evolved, so now we start taking care of ourselves, so we can take care of the community. So I did 31 years I did a year as a volunteer in Hillsborough, 31 years at Seminole, and a little over 8 years I retired from Seminole, as I said, as the fire chief, and went up to North County to Eastlake Fire Rescue, and in a role as a training chief up there, because I really loved training. Suzanne, at my retirement, made a quilt. The reason I got it here is to talk to you a little bit about everything we do in the fire service. Because generally speaking, you think we run fires. Well, 20% of our responses are fire related. A good chunk of those are fire alarms. 80% are medical calls. So a lot of the questions that we would always get is, why does a fire engine show up at our house when we have a medical emergency? Efficiency. It really was. When only 20% of our calls are fire calls, but we have all these stations geographically located so we can have quick responses, guess what makes sense? We want to be able to respond to your house quickly for a medical call. So we have all these geographically located fire stations. What if we put firefighters that we cross trains as paramedics on there with all the medical equipment, take care of that? Now we're nice and close. And it's a very efficient system, but people often ask, why does a fire truck show up? It's a fire truck with cross-trained firefighters that are emergency medical technicians and paramedics. Very efficient from both a working standpoint, but also from an economical standpoint. Because instead of having 4 people on a fire engine and 2 people on an ambulance, we have 4 people on an engine, we hope. And we've been able to reduce the cost of our service for efficiency. And I can tell you, and we run, you've seen Sunstar on, that's the county name for a private provider of ambulance services. So we generally, countywide, fire department will respond and arrive in less than 5 minutes on average, anywhere in the county. The ambulance, again, statistically, will arrive in about 10 minutes. Fire department arrives first on scene with very skilled clinicians, initiate care, stabilize the patient, ambulance shows up, very skilled personnel. We transfer care over to the ambulance personnel, they transport, we go available for another call. Again, a very efficient system. If you have a critical patient, there's 2 people on an ambulance, usually 1 paramedic and 1 emergency medical technician. If it's a critical patient, we will ride to the hospital with the patient, and we take our engine out of service. So in Pinellas County specifically, you can expect exceptional medical care because of the system that's been built. People often don't understand. But in the fire service, so what Suzanne did, and again, thank you so much for that amazing quilt. Unfortunately, it's too big for me to display at my house. It's way too tall. But she took T-shirts that meant a lot to me, of things that I did, and that's all represented here. You've seen a lot of pictures of stuff, and I think, and Pete retired from St. Pete Fire Rescue. One of the things that Seminole was known for, and so was St. Pete, is we used to compete against each other in what we called firematics. These were fire department competitions of different skill levels. What we were doing, and originally, it involved fire engines that we would hop off while they're moving. They frown on that now. You can't just hop off an engine when it's moving anymore. We used to do it all the time for competitions. There were, I want to say, 5 departments in Pinellas: St. Pete, Seminole, Pinellas Park, Largo, Treasure Island.
Crystal Beach, Ozona, Palm Harbor.
Yeah. Yeah. So there were in county we would compete against each other, and you would have a competition. The fire chiefs would make bets, side bets, ahead of the competition, and then pay off just friendly kind of bets. But then there was a statewide competition system, and Seminole competed in that and was very, very successful, having been state championships a couple times. And I don't know if you've seen the picture up there with a bunch of kids wearing common clothing. Fire competitions for us was quite a family event. Families would come and watch us practice. We practiced at Station 29, did a lot of practicing. And families would come and watch us participate when we traveled out of the county. They traveled with us. We even traveled out to Georgia, competed a couple times in Georgia. But a very successful. Unfortunately, there was a fire chief that wasn't here when we were competing, and they got rid of all our trophies. So I was able to, actually a dumpster dived and got some of the heads off the trophies just to display. But we were quite proud of the competition that we did. Also, Seminole was a very family-oriented department. We had all kinds of gatherings. We would meet annually for Christmas. We would open up the bays and station. We had to wash the bay floors, put tables in, and all families came. We had a holiday luncheon together. I think that, so Seminole has always been a very family-oriented department. We're still known, we still do it today. I took over from Doug Meyer where Santa goes on a fire engine on Christmas Eve and delivers presents to people. It used to be just in the fire department. We expanded that to family members in the city when we became a department in the city. It started out by collecting. The Firefighter Association would cook and do fundraisers, collect money. They would go out and buy presents for needy families. And the fire engine would deliver presents to needy families and then deliver Christmas presents to the rest of those that wanted that to happen. So Doug Meyer, one of the Santas for a number of years. And then I wanted that tradition to continue even after I retired from Seminole, and I became Santa's helper. Not Santa, obviously, because he's busy, but he's really busy, so Santa has a helper, and so I help Santa out deliver. There's a picture up there of me delivering presents. So, the other thing I find, because I told you, we take a lot of pride in the work we do. We train a lot because you have to train for a lot of different disciplines because you never know. Doug talked about the Hazardous Materials team that we were one of 5 departments in the county that participated in. We were also one of 5 departments in the county that was on the technical rescue team. So we did specialized responses anywhere in the county that for hazardous materials, and we also responded to people that were hanging on a rope, window washers, when soil fell down on top of them, and we had to dig them out. We did that. When people got caught in drains with swift water, we would do that. But we became part of the technical rescue team for the county as well. How many of you have ever heard a story about us rescuing an animal, a dog or a cat from a house, or ducks or something from a drain? Nobody's, a couple of you have? How many of you have read stories where we saved somebody's life that was in cardiac arrest? More hands show up for animals, so our priority in the fire service is saving your lives. When we get on scene to a house fire, our first priority is to search that house and find anybody that might not have been able to self-evacuate. All right, and then we take care of saving your property, because that's really, really important. But we also take a lot of pride in rescuing your pets, because we know how much they mean to you. And even on the engines, we carry masks. Oxygen masks, they're for pets. And there's a picture of me up there with an oxygen mask with a pet. But all of our engines, and that came from a grant, and countywide, all the fire departments have masks for pets. I will tell you a story about my daughter. So I was on a house fire over off Starkey Road, and we rescued all the occupants, but we also rescued 2 cats. But they were not doing well, they had smoke inhalation. So I took them to a vet who does emergency care, and they rehabbed the 2 cats. They were kittens. They called me up and said, well, George, thank you for bringing the cats here. We rehabilitated them, and now they're up for adoption. Do you know anybody that might want those kittens? I said, I bet my daughter would love them. 2 little Siamese cats, one black and one white. And my daughter did want them. The vet had named them Char and Cole. Wow, how appropriate. My daughter names them, adopts them. She renames them.
Oh, no.
And
Philip and Henry.
Philip and Henry.
What did she call them?
Philip and Henry instead of Char and Cole. Yeah, but our pets. So, and part might have to do with my future son-in-law, who is here, Cole. My daughter is in a vet program. She's going to St. Pete College to become a certified vet tech. And when she finishes school, I'm hoping Cole will become my son-in-law. That's the plan. And maybe she changed the name because of his name, Cole. Different spelling. Yeah. So on my quilt, you'll see just a ton of things that we do in the fire service. And my evolution from the fire service has been evolutions from public safety. I was in Boy Scouts, and when I worked several different events as a paramedic for events. I was also a registered Girl Scout leader. My wife Suzanne had a troop, and when they went on camporees, they had to have a first aider. And guess who volunteered to be first aider? I camped there. Initially, I got some strange looks from a male being there, but they got to know me, and so I would attend, and I would be a paramedic at Girl Scout events, but I was a registered Girl Scout. Registered Boy Scout, Girl Scout. So you'll see some stuff in here with Girl Scout t-shirts and Boy Scout t-shirts. And we also, when we have a bad incident here in Pinellas County, we get help from all over, mostly in-state, but some out-of-state help from first responders. Well, we also in this county send our first responders out of the county to help other communities. So that's why you see this red t-shirt there. I've deployed out of the county. Doug has, Pete has, 4 different events, whether it be forest fires or hurricane relief, tornadoes and stuff like that. So not only do we receive, but we give back. Seminole had a renowned vehicle education team where we actually competed internationally. We did here in the state, and then out of the county, and then in Europe. I was on the inaugural team, the education team for Seminole, where, because we didn't have enough folks that had the time or desire to do it, we linked up with Largo Fire Department. So we had a Largo Seminole team that competed together in an international competition in Orlando. So there's a lot of cooperation here in the county. That makes us a little bit different. We have a 911 center. We're all on this. We share the 911 center, which is different. When I got on, we had our own dispatch center, and we abused our dispatchers because it's fun. But we had our own dispatch center. Then we went to a county. Now we're all on the same radio channel, and it's pretty much some in St. Petersburg, but on the fringes of even St. Petersburg, we're all responding to fires together. We train together. We have the same standard operating procedures so that we can work closely. If you live in Pinellas County, you should feel very fortunate that you're going to get some exceptional fire service protection and medical protection, because we work hard to make sure that we do that for you. I've got just a couple minutes. Again, when my wife put this, this really cool quilt, she had to fill in spaces, so she's got some attributes of what we like our first responders to be known for. So you'll see some, my favorite food she put up there. I was known anywhere when I was working at a station that I love bacon, and I'm still known for that. So she put a bacon strip in there. And I was very involved in Rotary, again doing medical missions, went to Cuba, went to Peru, went to India for different medical missions. Again, an outreach of what I was given to me in the fire service. Now I hope that I can give that back. So I told you that my journey started out, I wanted to be a forest ranger. That didn't work out, so I spent 40 years in the fire service, and that seemed to work out okay. I was recognized for my work in the department. But when I retired 4 years ago from the fire service, in my heart, guess what I still wanted to be? A forest ranger. Now, I'm not a forest ranger, I'm a volunteer park ranger. I'm a volunteer park ranger at Boca Ciega, Millennium Park. I'm there every Tuesday. My passion is keeping the environment clean, so you'll see me around with my bucket and my sash, picking up garbage at all events. I do a big Earth Day presentation every year to highlight how we can better take care of our Earth, because that's my passion. So, and I know that part of so the best way that we can meet your needs for any type of emergency, whether it be a fire emergency or a medical emergency, is being preemptive with prevention. And so I brought 3 items here that can help you in case you have a fire. So you heard that I didn't know what Mr. Seminole was supposed to do. I really didn't. I was surprised completely to learn it. But I did develop a platform. I have 2 platform items. I want to keep our environment clean and educate people on how to do that, and I promote fire safety. So this fits right in. So I brought a fire extinguisher, a fire blanket to help put out fires, and smoke detectors, which I think are 3 staples of fire safety. And so we are going to have...
There's tickets there's red tickets in a fishbowl. Perfect. Yep.
So my time is up, but I'm sure Doug and Pete will stay behind and answer any questions you might have. And so I'm going to draw a ticket, and you'll get to pick the item that you want. And so everybody's ready.
I got it.
Okay. 162.
Yeah.
I see the anticipation here. 621.
Ooh. Oh.
Which item would you like?
I think I want the fire blanket.
Yeah, I would think about that.
This is a new evolution. This is nice because instead when you have a grease fire or something like that. Oh, I trust you.
You trust me?
Do you trust me? Then it's only right that I trust you.
That's it, doesn't burn?
Yeah, so it used to be that when you had a grease fire or something like that, and we've all been on calls where people picked up the pots, tried to run outside with that, and they severe burns, a bigger fire develops. Cookie sheets, there's a number of ways you can, but they developed this fire blanket. You can spread it out and fold it over safely to put smaller fires out. Now, not a big fire. What do you do with a big fire?
Okay, cool.
Call fire.
Evacuate out, call the fire department. And even a small fire, we still want you to call the fire department. Let's come out, we'll come out, and we'll just make sure that there's no hidden fire. And now we have a really cool device called a thermal imaging camera, which can look through walls without us having to take our axe and put holes in the walls like we used to love to do. But apparently it wasn't a popular thing for homeowners. Okay, so fire blanket, and that's a relatively new product in the market, and I love it.
We didn't purchase them, so, yeah, where?
So, you know what, can I say who I purchased from?
Mm-hmm.
I purchased from Amazon.
All right.
Because I
Everybody
get the
knows
best
that
prices
store.
from them. You'll see me at First Fridays, when we do the concerts,
Yeah.
First Friday. I donate raffle items for that. I've not been there a couple, because now I'm a scare actor at Busch Gardens right now. Because that's my therapy for my built-up stress in the fire service. Now I'm a scare actor at Busch Gardens for a Hall of Screen. But when that ends, I'll be back at First Fridays picking up garbage and donating raffle items. Okay, next. 162-618. There you go.
Ooh.
You have a choice of smoke detectors or a fire extinguisher.
The fire extinguisher.
And again, an excellent tool to have away from your kitchen area. We want this to be somewhere where it's away so that you can get it in case, because statistically 55% of all fires start in the kitchen from cooking when I'm not on duty. But, so that'll be mounted. And you can get my contact information. I'm happy to help you with that. Happy to talk to you further about your blankets or any of you that have questions. But, and then if it's a small fire, big fire,
Yeah.
get out, call 911.
George, is that blanket a one-time use?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Unless you're using it for your feet on a cold day.
Okay.
Then you can use it multiple times. I'm not saying your feet are on fire, okay? That's another story, but we'll still come. You know, and you know, when you call 911, most of the stuff you have are gonna be fire department related responses. And when, the only other reason you usually call 911 is for law enforcement. But most everything that goes through 911 center, fire departments, we take care of that for you because that's what's in our heart to do. We like to say that we've got servants' hearts. And if somebody in the fire department does not have a servant's heart, we want them to find a profession that maybe works better for them. Because we want them to be 100% dedicated to helping our communities. All right, last items. 162-587.
All right.
Time.
No, not the roof race. I'm not gonna be here anymore.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Again, you trust me, okay, I trust you. The world's a lot better place if we trust each other, right? There is trust but verified. But, all right, so again, I'm happy to stick around. I'm sure these gentlemen will. If you have any other questions about the history of the department or about things, yes.
I have a question for you. 10, 12 years ago, we knew a fireman that was with Hillsborough.
Yes.
And he was with the labor negotiations contract group representing the fire people.
Yeah.
And he told me a statistic that absolutely blew me away. And I don't know if it's still true. But at that time, one of their points was the average age after retirement for a fireman was 8 years of life. And it's because of the fact that during their careers, they were exposed to so many fire retardant chemicals and things in the air and such. Has that changed at all with the new suits and stuff?
It has. It has, and there was a time, like you said, usually about 7 to 8 years after retirement, we went to a happy place. And age 55 was the average age back then. In here, I've got a T-shirt of an organization that's out of the University of Miami, and that's one of the groups that I helped participate with, to help them with studies. There's a lot of medical attention being given to firefighters, and again, just wearing an air pack made a huge difference. Now we have systems where what it used to be, and so this helmet is not too bad. This one's a little dirtier. We used to love our helmets and our gear to be sooty, because that was, you were doing your job. That was, but we found out that wearing all of that the gear and the helmet and stuff, full of suit, was causing cancer.
Yes.
So now, when you get your fire gear dirty in a fire, it goes off, you get another set that you put on, that gets washed, professionally washed. And so we are spending a lot of time to help. So that, I can't tell you what the statistic is now, but it has significantly gone up. And it will continue to go up if we take care of ourselves, so we can take care of you.
Yeah. A lot of dedication of your health to ours.
Thank you. Thank you. And mental health is, we're strongly working on that. There are systems here in the county that take care of mental health as well. I do it at Busch Gardens, but there's other options.
Please take the time, everybody, besides getting refreshments, that you see the things that they brought, and check out the closer. They've got a little bit of paraphernalia. They both have boxes that have pins and medals in there. So take an opportunity to look at that stuff. And this was really great. It was informative. Thank you for the little bit of fire prevention put in there too. But it was a pleasure having you guys. And we get to be a future fossil. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
So like I said, come on up, ask questions, but definitely look at their things and have some refreshments. Okay? And thank you for being here.